for CAIR-Ohio, ROMINIQBAL. We are all here today to speak about the very, very dire humanitarian situation in Aleppo. We are now seeing a city besieged, schools targeted, hospitals targeted, and an industrial scale targeting of civilians, which we haven't seen in decades. The situation in Aleppo is very dire, and people there need our help. We hope that with this press conference today, we can make an appeal and put pressure on our government and President Obama and on this White House to ensure that the violence comes to an end immediately, that all civilians in Aleppo are evacuated immediately. There are still people in Aleppo who are civilians, who are not armed, they're old people, they're sick people, they're children, and these people need to be evacuated right away. In addition, we also want to make an appeal to the White House and President Obama that these people, the civilians, once they get out of Aleppo, are given food, clothing, shelter, and America needs to take the lead in helping these people. Obviously, we understand that America and this White House will work with allies, but President Obama needs to take the lead here. He needs to ensure that America is the forefront of making sure that all people, all civilians are not only safe, but once they leave Aleppo, they're taken care of. I'm going to now give way to the other speakers here. Once we have a reverend and a rabbi, and then we will have speakers from the Syrian American community. After that, you will have an opportunity to speak with them one-on-one. And now I will give way to Reverend Rebecca Tollefson from the Ohio Council of Churches.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Rebecca Tollefson, Executive Director of the Ohio Council of Churches. My name is spelled R-E-B-E-C-C-A, and then Tollefson, T-O-L-L-E-F-S-O-N. The Ohio Council of Churches is composed of 18 Christian denominations in the state of Ohio, which roughly is 4,500 congregations and 2+ million members. Throughout our sacred text, the Bible, are many passages about peace. And especially in this time of year, which we call Advent, the 4 weeks before Christmas, there are all kinds of celebrations that take place as we anticipate and sing about the Prince of Peace. We expect the Prince of Peace. Peace is central to who we are as Christians. The situation in Aleppo is incredibly tragic. And with the recent ceasefire proclaimed and then ignored, innocent people continue to be killed. This has got to stop. Peace needs to come sooner than later. And we ask the President of the United States to make sure that this happens and that he takes the lead. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Sharon Mars of Temple Israel. My name is spelled S-H-A-R-O-N-M-A-R-S. Today is a day of lamentation. Today, Syria's dying child cries out to the world. We here are gathered, people of faith and people of conscience, to reflect and record that our faith hereby calls us to action, and our consciences prevent us from sitting any longer in silence. We ask our fellow citizens and leaders of the world today, can you hear Aleppo crying? Once that city bustling with business, brimming with people, treasured gem of the Silk Road, lies in ruins. Shards of politics have stabbed whole communities. Tears of despair have drowned entire families, saturating the already blood-soaked neighborhoods and tearing at the fabric of what we have known to be humanity. Can you hear Aleppo crying? That din we mistook for background noise over the past 4 years or more is indeed the sound of limestone being shelled by mortars, is indeed the sound of feet scurrying for shelter, is indeed the sound of babies being born into chaos. Mothers whispering pleas for protection, fathers scavenging food for loud and hungry mouths. Can you hear Aleppo crying? Humanity has been here before. We know this bitter taste. We sense that rancid smell. This murder and mayhem is an all too familiar refrain of a song called Tyranny, an ode to past decency. Lest we think there is no precedent, let the world of decent human beings now bear witness to the death of an entire city, full of heartbeats, full of pulsating dreams, full of life, lest we shrug it off as simply the latest ferocious rampage, the most recent and indecent solution in a long line of systematic operations to decimate other human beings. Let us here attest to the fact that yes, we hear Aleppo crying. We know and we see and we stand with those citizens of decency and courage, of resilience and strength who value democracy and freedom. The thousands of innocent inhabitants of that city so savagely stripped of peace, we hear Aleppo wailing, and we cannot and shall not stop our ears up with indifference. We cannot and shall not shunt those cries to blunt their blows to our souls. We cannot and shall not forget Aleppo. Aleppo is wailing. Aleppo is dying. And we, people of faith and conscience, are all here to hear it. May the Holy One of Mercy bestow healing upon the wounded city of Aleppo, Syria. May the Holy One of Blessing grant comfort to all those who mourn in and for Aleppo today, and may God bestow awareness and fierce confidence upon all peace-loving people everywhere who decry the violence and bloodshed of this shameful war. May the Holy One, who is the maker of peace, spread a shelter of peace upon all of humanity so that shalom, salam, peace permeates our world. Thank you.
Sir, do you mind actually closing the blinds once again? Makes the lighting's better that way.
And now we'll hear from members of the Syrian American community.
I'm Abdul Atasi. My name is spelled Abdul, Atassi. As a Syrian American, it breaks my heart to see what's happening in Aleppo. I was actually when the protests started against the regime in 2011. I was in Syria at the time, and I noticed firsthand how people courageously continued to go out and speak out day in and day out. When the protest started, all people were asking for was to be treated with dignity as human beings and not to be arrested without reason, not have their loved ones disappear in dungeons. What they were met with was extreme violence, and the regime has been violently repressing them ever since. We need to ask ourselves if we allow the people who demand their rights and speak up to power to be left alone and to be massacred, what message would be sending to the world? I appeal to our government to do more to protect innocent civilians and ensure that people who demand freedom and democracy know that someone is standing by their side. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dana Hamza. I am part of the Syrian American community here in Ohio. My name is spelled D-A-N-A-H-A-M-Z-A. As a Syrian American who is from Aleppo originally, a lot of my extended family lives in Aleppo till this day. And what's happening in Aleppo is almost one of the worst genocides that's happened in history yet. From rape and torture to indiscriminate bombing to chemical weapons, the only thing yet that hasn't been used to kill these innocent civilians is a nuclear bomb. My uncle has moved 3 times, each time because his old house got bombed, and each time he was hoping that the new place he would move to was a safer place. But no place is safe anymore. The third time his house got bombed, he and my cousins, all under the age of 10, had left just a few minutes prior to the explosion. If they had decided to stay a few minutes more in the house, they would have been nothing but remnants of body parts now. My aunt's house, who was also just a few minutes away from our house in Syria, also got bombed. Basic life necessities are not provided. There is a blockade of food, water, and no electricity for refrigeration. Leftovers go in the trash. My cousins who live in East Aleppo haven't gone to school for 4 years. Children have lost their education, teachers have fled the country, and every new schooling place they move to gets bombed a couple days after, with children inside. What's left of doctors who decided to stay and help were killed. And of those was Dr. Muaz, which was the last pediatrician in Aleppo. Every last hospital was destroyed, leaving now every injured and sick to die alone. They are consistently warned not to leave the house, and those who leave will most likely not return. What kind of life can you live by staying at home all day in fear of leaving your house and being afraid that a rocket or a bullet will come and kill you on the spot? Places that took them 10 minutes to get to now take a few hours, if not more, due to the excessive and unnecessary interrogation at the barriers. This genocide in Aleppo has left innocent children as orphans and has raped women, stripping them of their basic rights, and left men with missing limbs. Every time we call our family to check on them, we hear bombs exploding in the background, and the scary thing is not knowing where that bomb is going to land next. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sumaya, that's S-U-M-A-Y-A, Hamadmad, H-A-M-A-D-M-A-D, and I'm representing the Syrian community. I am the victim of the Assad regime. Assad the father, to be specific. My grandfather, my 2 uncles, my 4 cousins were killed by the Assad regime, the father, in 1982 in Hama. At the time, 20,000 people were killed in a matter of 2 weeks. Families like mine were displaced, and that was in 1982. We thought the reason was people did not know. We thought that the lack of cameras, media, YouTube, internet was the reason behind the massacre of Hama. However, 2011 came and we were proven wrong. For 6 years, my people in Syria have been killed. Bombs have been dropped over children. Children have been killed under the rubble of their homes and schools by the Assad government and its allies, Russia and Iran. Chemical weapon attacks took the life of 1,500 kids just 2 years ago. And yet, nothing happened. People were watching, and the inaction was deafening. Over half a million Syrians were killed until this day, and more than 5 or 6 million have been displaced, internally or externally. And today we're talking about Aleppo. Aleppo is only one city that has been destroyed. We have the whole Syria, like Hama has been repeated over and over. And although people of Aleppo have been evacuated as we speak, and this is some good news, but let's not forget that this is called cleansing. People have been forced to leave their homes. People have been forced to leave their dreams behind, the dream of freedom and living in dignity in their own country. And we think that, we're hoping that they will be safe, but there is nothing guaranteed. Attacks have been also done over like the city of Idlib, where those people are going to. They're fleeing to Idlib, but Idlib is not safe. They're fleeing to the suburb of Aleppo, but again, this is not safe. So I think it's time that we tried actually reach out to the White House. We have called over the last 6 years. We have called, we have written messages, we have met with our representatives in Congress and Senate, but nothing happened. And it's time to speak to people like us. We really believe in the humanity of everyone who's listening to us. Hopefully, we can take action. It's time to say never again and mean it. It's time to say that enough with Russian aggression and with Assad genocide, with Iranian intervention. Enough is enough, and it's time to take action. and stop watching. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Abdul Rahman Al-Baroudi. First name Abdul -RAHMAN. Last name is Al-Baroudi, ALBEIRUTI. It's hard to speak after Sumaya's compassionate plea, but I'll just give my reflections. As an American and as a Syrian, I'm just outraged at the wanton destruction that we've been seeing for the past 5 to 6 years, and specifically the last few months, particularly in Aleppo. It's an outrage to see blatant disregard for human life and the targeting of innocent civilians and healthcare workers and physicians who, many of whom had the opportunity to leave the besieged city but decided to stay to help the remaining citizens. I urge the U.S. government and its allies and the international community to see to it that the remaining civilians in Aleppo and Syria are provided with safety, with food, shelter, basic medical necessities, and I hope that through our efforts, through our voice, we can get better awareness of the situation, and I appeal on the humanity of people to push their governments to see to it that the current crisis ends, and I urge the U.S. government and its allies to hold those responsible for the atrocities, namely the Syrian regime, the Russian government, and the Iranian government, accountable for the atrocities they're committing. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ammar Kawam. That's spelled A-M-M-A-R K-H-A-W-A-M. An American citizen of Syrian descent. I was born in Damascus. Aleppo is actually my hometown. I was 8 years old when I first drove through, in a bus, we were in a bus, drove through the city of Hama in 1982. And I was the first to witness the atrocities back then. And I remember the silence that happened in the bus. Everybody was silent. The sights of the destroyed buildings. And as an 8-year-old, I was curious. I asked my father, why are there so many holes in the buildings? And he put his hand on my mouth and told me to shut up. That's how we were treated as Syrians. We shut up until 2011, when we said no more. I've heard many awful stories about Haman. I never thought that I would live them, literally live them, word by word, the exact same tactics, never changed. Again, as Sumaya said, we were always told that there was no coverage. Well, it's not true here, because now, not only that we have coverage, sometimes we have different angles, 3 or 4 different angles of the same event. It's disturbing to see that in 2016, the prime target of the regime is actually not the militants or armed people, it's actually the people. It's actually the prime target is the hospitals. I'm part of the Syrian American Medical Society, SAMS, which is responsible for the excellent work that happened in eastern Aleppo, establishing many hospitals. And the healthcare system in eastern Aleppo was pretty much held by SAMS. I was amazed by the doctors returning from missions there to tell me that whenever a hospital is established in Aleppo, you see anybody that, like a militant base, they would flee because that would be the prime target for the bombing. And I was like surprised that this is something that is happening in nowadays. There are many physicians that are helping children and the sick over there that have covered wars elsewhere. And there was one incident that I want to share where a junior doctor came and he covered a previous conflict. And he said, why don't you share the GPS location, the coordinates of the hospital? And all of the physicians started laughing because this is the target. We are the target. We are not hit by accident. We are targeted. And Senator McCain said that other day. You have precision bombs that are being dropped on these hospitals. And the city of Aleppo collapsed when its hospitals collapsed. And the hospitals collapsed when humanity collapsed. Now I know Syria is far away from us, but is this the world we want to have our children live in? Remember, we're all in a big village, and surefires anywhere are going to spread and get bigger if we don't put them out. I'm saddened to say, again, we have tried many times to appeal to the White House. We have not had any success. I am appealing to the people, to everybody, to humanity. Please do something. Please do something. Thank you.
So this brings an end to our press conference. The speakers here are all available for one-on-one interviews. We have 3 rooms which we'll make available, one here and 2 other rooms. You feel free to ask them questions if you're interested. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate that.